Part 61. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 601. Boy, you are from the Lin family. This is the void-breaking spiritual eye technique. Hearing this horrified voice, Zuyun was even more shocked than him. He even knew better than the only clan member Lin Xiaoqi what kind of situation the Lin family was in the Peeper realm. Lin Xiaoqi had never seen the destruction of the Lin family, but Lin Wenjiang reflected everything that happened at that time in Zuyun's mind, as if he was there in person. Therefore, it is impossible for Zuyun to admit it. Old man Feng, what did you say? What the hell? Zuyun pretended to be calm and threw a spiritual stone in his hand towards his forehead. Boy, don't pretend to be stupid. You are a descendant of the Lin family, right? The spirit stone disappeared into the portrait from between old man Feng's brows, but he turned a blind eye and asked Zuyun. Old man Feng, are you stupid? Why don't you belong to the Lin family? I am a member of the Fire Dragon sect. Zuyun wanted to use the spirit stone to smash him to death. Impossible. I won't be wrong. Back then. The words reached his lips and stopped abruptly. What was that year? Upon hearing this, Zuyun seemed to be able to hear something secret, so he asked further. Nothing. Old man Feng's expression changed and he said angrily, obviously worried. Zuyun was not a good person either. He snorted coldly and said, Old man Feng, if you don't tell me, don't expect me to give you any more spiritual stones. Good boy. Old man Feng suddenly blew his beard and glared, and cursed angrily at Zuyun. These 50,000 spirit stones are a serious transaction between me and you. Don't you want to know what the use of that treasure is? Zuyun glanced at him lightly, and in order to know more information, he simply said, Old man Feng, do you think I gave you 50,000 yuan because of this? Humph, I just saw you as pitiful and wanted to let you go. Just come out. This so-called treasure is actually a space, right? If my guess is correct, there is a refining room in it. As soon as these words came out, old man Feng looked in disbelief, pointed at Zuyun, and said in shock, how do you know? I'm a destined person. Zuyun shrugged, shook the spirit stone in his hand, and said, so, I didn't have to deal with you originally, but seeing that you were alone and trapped in the painting, I felt compassion and wanted to take you away. Release it? However, I was a little interested in what you just said, so I changed my mind. I don't know whether it's the Lin family or not. Tell me what happened back then, and I'll release you. Boy, are you threatening me? Old man Feng, please give me a warm reminder, you don't know when your son will come back. Seeing Zuyun's somewhat rogue tone, old man Feng gritted his teeth. I thought that I had the upper hand. As long as this kid threw 50,000 spiritual stones into the portrait, he would be able to come out of it after it was healed, but I didn't expect that he would take advantage of it. Wait. He clearly knows the role of that treasure, why is he still willing to give me 50,000 spiritual stones? Good boy, you really have other plans. Old man Feng still had a trace of reason in his anger. After thinking for a while, I decided to give in to Zuyun for the time being. As long as this kid is really from the Lin family and takes him to the spirit world. There's nothing wrong with being soft, you can just attack him. I said. Immediately, old man Feng made a decision and immediately said, little family, little brother, it doesn't matter even if you don't recognize the Lin family. Anyway, everyone in the Peeper realm knows about the Lin family. But, old man, I personally experienced this, even though I was just a spectator, I also knew their secrets. Zuyun was shocked. Why did he reveal that he knew the secret of the fragment? That's not all it's for. Speak quickly. If your son comes back, there will be no chance. Zuyun said immediately. I say. Little brother, it's like this. When the Lin family was exterminated, almost all sects had people involved. On the surface, they were trying to break the void spiritual eye secret, so that they could go to the spirit world by themselves. But in fact, many people are here for the Tianfu fragments. Fragments of the heavenly talisman. Zuyun was greatly surprised. When he learned about the disaster of the Lin family from Lin Wen, he had thought that it would be a fragment of the Tianfu. But soon, he felt that this possibility was very low. Is everything a monk does to enter a higher level? The monks in Yunzhou want to go to Yezhu, the monks in Yezhu want to go to Peepa Realm, and the monks in Peepa Realm naturally want to go to the spiritual world. Zuyun also knows that the Peepa Realm is limited by the laws of heaven, and it is absolutely impossible to go one step further and reach the divine transformation stage. The fragment of heavenly talisman is indeed a strange book. Zuyun only learned 2 kinds of talismans in it, but he was still astonished. Whether it is the heaven gathering thunder talisman or the ice tornado talisman, he has benefited greatly from the application of spiritual power. But to all the monks, this is just a book that teaches people how to draw talismans. Why did it attract a group of powerful people from the Peepa realm to destroy the Lin family? He didn't believe it. But with the Tianfu remnant on his body, Zuyun naturally couldn't show it. Instead, he was full of doubts and motioned to old man Feng to continue. Yes, it's the Tianfu fragment. My little brother has lived in the Fire Dragon sect for a long time, so he probably hasn't heard of it, right? Old man Feng temporarily believed that Zuyun was a disciple of the Fire Dragon section with his level. It was naturally impossible for him to come into contact with such a profound secret. Not to mention him, not even many sect leaders knew about it. Those who can go are basically the supreme elders and others who have no concerns about the sect and have devoted themselves to enlightenment. Of course, there are also very few sect leaders involved, such as Yao Wuxi. But that's not often the case. Zuyun shook his head and said that he didn't know, and said, "Don't look at me, just keep talking. When I am happy, I will continue to give you spiritual stones." Old man Feng had no choice but to say, "The group of people who were able to use swords were basically the spirit swords that I forged for them myself. Of course, this sword was refined from the sword refining room. So in the Peepa realm, I'm still a bit thin-faced. However, they didn't plan to take me there at first, but later the great beauty of the Suanji sect recommended me." Wait, who is the beauty? Zuyun didn't feel surprised at all to hear such an inappropriate name from old man Feng. "I can only recommend him to go with me, but I think my relationship is very shallow. He is the master of their current sect master. The beauty is also a swordsman, and her sword was also refined by me, using many of my best materials. The beauty felt that she owed me a favor, and thought that she was going to force her to marry her. The Lin family is a good thing. It allows me to get a share of the pie, which is a return of my favor. What a big shot." Zuyun thought to himself, nodded, and asked old man Feng to continue. "Originally, the rest of the people did not agree with me going, especially the monks who had no friendship with me. In fact, I don't care. After all, I am just an old man who refines swords and has been obsessed with swordsmanship all my life." "Stop, stop, stop," Zuyun interrupted old man Feng's words unceremoniously and said disdainfully, "Don't talk about this, talk about business." Ahem, old man Feng smiled awkwardly. He didn't know what Zuyun meant. He meant that he was bragging. The great beauty knew something about me, so she told me about my spiritual root. Then, old man, I was if you stay, then. Zuyun was stunned, remembering Feng Qinjiang's flying shuttle and the spiritual attributes that he could not detect, and immediately asked, "What kind of spiritual root are you?" "Our Feng family has had a single spiritual root of the wind system for generations." Old man Feng said proudly, but then he became a little discouraged. "The wind spirit root is good, but we don't dare to let people know it. You can tell it by looking at me. It didn't work out back then, but now many people are still looking for trouble for me. If Weitanggu hadn't been in Pipa Prefecture and I started pretending to be crazy again, I would have died long ago. Since they left you here, do you think Fenglingen will be of great help to them? Zuyun was secretly shocked, but asked without changing his expression. Yes, without me, they would have achieved twice the result with half the effort. The Lin family's ancestral land is surrounded by a lake, which they call the Holy Lake. But the Holy Lake is often confused by water mist. In the water mist, spiritual power is restricted, and spiritual consciousness being restricted, I only have my wind spirit root. If I use my full strength, I can help them disperse it to a certain extent, allowing them to reach the Lin family's ancestral land safely. Old Man Feng sighed and continued, who would have thought that these people would use threats and inducements as soon as they arrived. But I have to say that the Lin family has a strong character and would rather die than surrender. I never thought that these old immortals would not have the courage to do so. Human nature. Speaking of this, Zuyun faintly saw a trace of unbearable flash in Old Man Feng's eyes. He was thoughtful and asked, "Then have you ever taken action?" Old Man Feng shook his head and said, "No, I'm just a weapon refiner. How could I do such a tragic thing? I just didn't expect that I would help the evildoer. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 602. Then why are you pretending to be like this again? Zuyun meant that he was too sloppy. What can I do? I'm helpless. I didn't take action at that time. I was only discovered after they killed the Lin family. They thought I had evil intentions. Plus, it was the Great Beauty who called me here. I was not trusted by them at all. Later, I pretended to be crazy, and thanks to the Great Beauty, I escaped from the Lin family's ancestral land and returned to Huayden Valley. If you leave the valley, you can only act crazy and make them unwary. Then what about the fragments of the heavenly talisman you just mentioned? What is that? Zuyun kept this matter in mind. The Lin family can go to the spirit world. It is said that the fragments of the sky talisman are something they brought back from the spirit world. A group of people in the nascent soul stage want to find information about the spirit world from it. Although the void-breaking spiritual eye technique can see the passage of the spirit world, however, these nascent soul stagers thought very highly of themselves, and they all thought that they would go to the spirit world together, so they thought of starting with the fragments of the Tianfu first. However, at that time, the Lin family not only did not make friends with each other. The method of cultivating the void spirit eye technique has never been used before, and this operation cannot fail again. Old Man Feng shook his head and sighed again. All bets are lost. Because Zuyun knew that later in the Peeper realm, several powerful nascent souls broke into the passage together, but their soul cards were all broken. As for the Lin family, only one Lin Xiaoqi happened to take someone to the spirit world, and he was lucky enough to survive. They searched the entire Lin family's ancestral land and found nothing except corpses. It's really miserable. Old Man Feng raised his head, his eyes were slightly red, and he looked at Zuyun through the scroll. After a long while, he murmured, "Little brother, Old Man Feng, will not be mistaken. What you just did was the void-breaking spiritual eyes technique. If you can take me to the spirit world, or you can pass the void-breaking spiritual eyes technique to the I am Old Man Feng, I told you, I don't know how to use Lao Shizi's art of breaking the void spiritual eyes." Zuyun shouted sternly, "Not to mention how I taught it to you. Don't talk about it in the future, otherwise it will spread out and spread rumors, which will cause me to kill people." Seeing Zuyun's reaction, Old Man Feng had no choice but to shut his mouth, but he was sure of it in his heart. During the massacre that year, the Lin family rose up to resist. Almost all the clan members fought with the void-breaking spiritual eye technique. How could he admit his mistake after experiencing it firsthand? But after hearing Zhu Yun's words, he knew why the other party denied it. It doesn't matter whether it's the Lin family or not. If the news spreads, Zhu Yun will be in danger. So for now, just hug this kid's lap and win his favor. I wonder if I will have the opportunity to go to the spirit world in the future. By then, Old Man Feng returned to his original idea, and followed Zhu Yun's words and said, "Yes, yes, little brother, don't be offended, it's because my old man is too excited. Then hurry up and put in the spirit stones now." "That's right. Do you want to learn how to make a sword? I can teach you all about it, old man." Zhu Yun was dumbfounded. This old man Feng was good at changing his face, but since the other party expressed his stance like this, it was better to release him first. After all, we have to stay in Huayton Valley for a while. In addition, if people from Flower City find this place again, they can push him out as a shield. After all, these 50,000 spiritual stones cannot be wasted, right? Zhu Yun threw the spirit stones and expressed that he was not interested in the art of sword refining. Unexpectedly, Old Man Feng said, "Little brother, you used that black sword to kill a nascent soul stage. That sword is so rough, it is not as good as the old man. I will temper your sword with my own hands. It will definitely be more powerful." Big rise. Zhu Yun immediately refused. How could the chaos sword pass through Old Man Feng's hand? "Little brother, don't object in a hurry. When the old man comes out and captures the earth vein fire, you will know why I will refining the sword for you. You know, my refining room." As soon as he said this, Old Man Feng remembered that Zhu Yun knew the secret in the fragments, and his face darkened, and he did not say any further words. Since he knows, it means he must have gone in. Old Man Feng felt bitterness in his heart again. When I first obtained this treasure, I wasted a lot of time before discovering its secret. But how long has it been since Zhu Yun? Comparing one person to another is really infuriating. There was no need for Zhu Yun to speak, and Old Man Feng's own expression darkened again. Seeing him like this, Zhu Yun felt even more amused. This Old Man Feng seemed to be a man of good temper, so he seemed trustworthy. As long as you catch him, you can wait safely in Huayton Valley until the secret realm is opened. As soon as he rolled his eyes, Zhu Yun smiled and said, "Old Man Feng, what's wrong with you? Why don't you tell me what you're unhappy about to make me happy?" Old Man Feng smiled bitterly, "Little brother, stop talking. You have almost asked me all about Old Man Feng, so what else can I do with you to make a deal?" "Ha ha." Zhu Yun couldn't help but laugh heartily and said, "I have many spiritual stones. Why don't you tell me about Lake Baipa?" "Lake Baiwa." Old Man Feng couldn't help but his eyes lit up and said, "Yeah, why didn't I think of it? My little brother just came out of the Fire Dragon sect, and even the Lin family didn't know about it, so it makes sense that he doesn't know about this People Lake. This People Lake is the most magical. The most important thing is that monks are prohibited from entering during the day, and mortals are prohibited from entering at night." Zhu Yun already knew this from the old fisherman, so he smiled and said, "So, if ordinary monks want to come over, they can only come at night, is that right?" "That's right." The boy who was in the middle stage of nascent soul brought a group of people who were in the Dan formation stage. They could get to this island at night? Otherwise, how could they get in? Old Man Feng was still frowning before, but when he talked about Lake Baipa, he was very proud. He continued, "Little brother, I am not bragging, Old Man Feng. Those old immortals are like this because they are afraid that this lake will be controlled by our Huayton Valley, so even if they are dissatisfied with me and may have murderous intentions, they are unlikely to come over. In addition, they have no intention of killing me because I am pretending to be crazy. After all, killing me is an insignificant old man. If you go here, the gains outweigh the losses." Zhu Yun smiled and said, "So, the ordinary nascent soul stage will not come here?" Old Man Feng nodded and said, that is indeed the case, but after some time, it may not necessarily be the case. After all, with the secret realm of the heavenly book opening, it is very likely that some sect masters will come to the island with their disciples in the pill formation stage. After all, when the secret realm of the heavenly book is opened, you can only be transported into the secret realm if you hold the beginning bead and are on the island. Talking about the secret realm of the heavenly book again, Zuyun couldn't help but get excited and said, Old Man Feng, is there really a book of heaven in the secret realm of the heavenly book? Book of heaven? Old Man Feng shook his head and said with a smile, these are just rumors. Isn't it a heavenly book? Zuyun felt even more strange. Whether it was the news he got from the Fire Dragon sect or Tang Liwen telling him to obtain the heavenly book, Zuyun's suspicions had long been confirmed. But Old Man Feng said it was a rumor? No one knows what it is, but this secret realm is called the secret realm of the heavenly book, so they all thought it was the secret realm of the heavenly book. Even with the deliberate promotion of those old immortals, this time the secret realm of the heavenly book may be the real secret realm for thousands of years. What a grand occasion! Then does your Huaytan Valley have anything to do with the secret realm of the Book of Heaven? Zuyun's heart suddenly moved. It's not an exaggeration to say that Huaytan Valley is the ancestral land of their Feng family, right? The secret realm of the Book of Heaven has been opened for thousands of years, and Huaytan Valley has always been on Pipa Prefecture. It has nothing to do with it. After hearing this, Old Man Feng cursed loudly and said, we only have something to do with the Skyfire Dragon here. Zuyun's eyes suddenly widened, Skyfire Dragon? What the hell? Skyfire? Ah, no, there is no Skyfire. Old Man Feng quickly shook his head and waved his hands, saying, it's just a kind of monster. How can there be Skyfire in the mortal world like ours? Zuyun narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, Old Man Feng, are you lying to me? If the Skyfire Dragon is not Skyfire, I will cut off its head and give you a bench to sit on. Hearing Zuyun's sure tone, Old Man Feng smiled bitterly again, little brother, why are you so sure? Zuyun grinned and said nothing. Unexpectedly, I had a flash of inspiration and guessed it right. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 603. After fusing the fragments of the weapon refining room, he had long discovered that there was a difference between the weapon refining room and the alchemy room, and even the cabin entering the ranch. That means there is absolutely nothing in the house. Although there is no alchemy furnace in the refining room, there is a cabinet with some elixir recipes in it. There was a shelf in the cabin. In addition to the whip, there were various tools on the shelf, which looked like they were used for herding. Unfortunately, there is nothing in the refining room. Except for some immovable stoves that are integrated with the refining room, there is nothing left. If Zuyun hadn't known that ordinary people couldn't enter the fragment, he almost thought it was being visited by thieves. This was also the reason why he had to come to Huaytan Valley to find Old Man Feng, because he wanted to know whether he had entered it and what was in the room. And because he had previously said that he would help Zuyun temper the Chaos Sword, and he also mentioned the Earth Vein Fire that could be captured. In this way, it can be confirmed that the Skyfire Dragon is an extraordinary creature. Old Man Feng's self-reported refining of spiritual swords for countless reclusive nascent soul masters is enough to illustrate his sword refining skills, which requires good spiritual fire to make it possible. He also said that the existence of Huaytan Valley was for the Skyfire Dragon. So there is no doubt that this Skyfire Dragon must be Skyfire. The Skyfire Dragon is Skyfire, right? Zuyun asked with a smile. At this time, Old Man Feng, who knew he had spilled the beans, also had a serious expression on his face and said, little brother, Are you trying to take it away? Zuyun asked, what do you think? I advise you not to have such an idea. Old man Feng sighed and said, how can heavenly fire be controlled by us monks in the mortal world? Do you know why Huaitan Valley is surrounded by mountains? Pipa Prefecture is located in the middle of Pipa Lake. Zuyun spread his hands and said matter-of-factly, I don't know. Huaitan Valley is a natural formation, surrounded by mountains. Its purpose is to trap the sky fire dragon. Secondly, the water of Lake Baipa is the same. The sky fire dragon's spiritual power is the most violent during the day. Zuyun continued, so the purpose of banning spirits during the day in Lake Baipa is to suppress the spiritual power of the sky fire dragon. Yes, that's it. Old man Fen nodded and said, at night, the sky fire dragon will become silent and will not think of escaping from here. If the sky fire dragon escapes from trouble, I'm afraid the entire Pipa realm will be burned to the ground. Zuyun didn't believe it and said, just now you said that you could catch the sky fire dragon to temper the black sword for me. Old man Feng said sternly, that's because I, Huaitan Valley, have a unique method. I can borrow the power of this natural formation to temporarily suppress him. But Zuyun had already guessed this possibility. If he didn't have the power to control it, how could he, old man Feng, refine weapons? How could Feng Qingyang take Xianxia to temper the folding fan? But he still asked, but what? But I once brought the heavenly fire dragon into the refining room, and it turned out to be extremely well behaved, as if it was afraid of something in the refining room. Zuyun's eyes lit up. He didn't know what the refining room would be like when it was still an independent fragment. But it should be very different from his immortal mansion. Outside the refining room, there is chaos power. The power of chaos is higher than the spiritual power of the five elements. Was it suppressed by the power of chaos? No, not necessarily. No matter how broken the weapon refining room is, it was once a part of the immortal mansion. Maybe there is some kind of power that I can't sense. Just like when I discovered Fen Tianyan, it was trapped in the alchemy room. Wait. Fen Tianyan is a heavenly fire, and I heard Huang Longsha say that he is often used by the immortal emperor to refine pills and make weapons. Moreover, if Fen Tianyan was not trapped in the alchemy room, he would probably be extremely powerful. Even after countless years, his strength has declined and his intelligence has faded. When we first met, he still kept shouting that I am Fenchen and I can burn the sky. It's also possible that he is afraid of Fen Tianyan's aura. It's a pity that Fen Tianyan was thrown into the immortal mansion by him at this time, and he didn't have time to take him out yet. However, now that we already know the fact that Skyfire Dragon is Skyfire, it doesn't matter. With the fire spirit bead, Fen Tianyan can steadily become stronger inside, and there is almost no need to devour other spirit fires to strengthen. Furthermore, it would be a pity to swallow a piece of heavenly fire. If it can be conquered. Zuyun couldn't help but become greedy. But then I thought about it. If the Sky Fire Dragon was useful to Huaitangu, it would not be feasible for me to do this. Little brother, I'm telling you this, but I still hope you won't try to conquer the Sky Fire Dragon. Hearing old man Feng's request again, Zuyun no longer had such thoughts, but still asked curiously, why? Old man Feng, spiritual things like Skyfire are something everyone wants, right? Old man Feng said, little brother, I know that the entire mortal world will go crazy for such spiritual beings. If those old immortals know about it, they will definitely fight. The Pipa realm will be in chaos. And our Feng, why does the family stay here? In fact, it is because the Pipa realm can develop naturally and not be destroyed by these people. Otherwise, what difference does it make if the heavenly fire dragon is trapped or not? Zuyun thought about it carefully and felt that what old man Feng said was indeed reasonable. The sky fire dragon escaped and burned the entire mortal world. But if other powerful monks knew about it, given the nature of these people, they might really try their best to snatch it away. Even with his full strength, he can easily destroy a mountain. Not to mention these nascent soul stages. When the Peeper realm arrives, it will be riddled with holes, and the earth's veins will probably be broken, and the spiritual energy will be thin from now on. This is the only place to go to the spirit world. By then, the entire mortal world may not be able to continue to cultivate. Suddenly, Zuyun felt that this irrelevant old man Feng had become taller. I am not interested in this sky fire dragon, and I don't want to subdue it, Zuyun said seriously. Old man Feng stared for a while and laughed. Hey, little brother, you are such a good person. Zuyun sneered, and his tall image collapsed like before. He took a handful of spirit stones and smashed them into the scroll, saying, I'll give you 50,000 first to let you come out, and we'll talk about anything later. Thank you, thank you. If I come out, you will be my brother in the future. Old man Feng was overjoyed and spoke without thinking, which made Zuyun extremely helpless. Under the ground of Weitan Valley. The abyss has been filled with ground fire. No, it should be said that it is the sky fire dragon now. After being filled with the sky fire dragon, the sound of dragon roars faintly rang in the mountain road. Xianxia felt something was wrong, so she looked at Feng Qingyang. But Feng Qingyang kept mumbling to himself, and had no time to pay attention to her. After a while, Feng Qingyang wiped his sweat and said, Fairy Zhong, this earth vein fire can be used for 1 hour. After 1 hour, you must not refine it. 1 hour. Xianxia frowned, not because there was not enough time, but because she had been refining weapons for many years and never knew that there was a time limit for earth vein fire. The earth vein fire of the fire dragon sect is strong enough, right? As long as the disciples can enter the weapon refining, they will refine it almost all day and night, just to complete the sect's tasks as soon as possible and make time to practice again. Yes, 1 hour. Our earth vein fire must be different from your fire dragon section. Feng Qingyang nodded, he was telling the truth. Moreover, he didn't know that this earth vein fire was heavenly fire. Unless old man Feng passed the position of the sect master to Feng Qingyang, such a secret matter would never be revealed. Ever since his natal magic sword showed abnormality, old man Feng felt that he might have a chance to become an immortal. But after waiting for a long time, no one found Huatan Valley, so he simply left Huatan Valley. He didn't know if there was an old immortal staring at him, so he pretended to be crazy and stupid, and chose the direction according to the vibration of his natal magic sword. Finally, he went to the market. He thought that since his sword could move, the destined person would definitely feel it. In order not to be discovered by the old immortal, he did not stay in the market. After leaving the message that he was a member of the sword refining sect, he exchanged the spirit stone for wine and drank all the way back to Pipajo. He was cautious and not strong, so he could not find out if anyone followed him into Huatan Valley. Once he returned to the valley, he immediately hid in the scroll. But he never thought that at that time, Zuyun merged the fragments. His life sword was broken, so he was naturally seriously injured. This painting is actually a magical instrument in a portable space. But there is nothing inside, not even spiritual energy. In this way, old man Feng has been trapped inside. If he wants to recover from his injuries, he doesn't know how long it will take, but he is too embarrassed to tell Feng Qingyang directly because he loves face. Not to mention, Feng Qingyang also brought 2 outsiders. But he was also very fortunate. Although Zuyun got a lot of information from him, he actually benefited a lot. At this time, the spiritual stones thrown into the scroll kept turning into powder, turning into spiritual power that was absorbed and refined by him. The injuries were also slowly recovering. In a few hours, I can recover 30% and come out. I don't know if Qingyang, the kid, will do anything after taking the female cultivator to the bottom of the valley. Old man Feng couldn't help but think distractedly. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 604. At night. When the last ray of sunlight was lost at the mountain pass, the flowers on the surrounding cliff suddenly lit up, as if they had taken over the sun's illumination of Huayden Valley. At this time, Old Man Feng had fully entered the state of cultivation. He was so immersed in his mind that he did not pay attention to the situation outside. He also did not expect that his son Feng Qingyang could only control the sky fire dragon for an hour at most. Why at this time? He didn't come out with Xianxia. On the contrary, he thought that he would be able to come out of the scroll in just a moment and a half, and he felt a little excited in his heart. Looking at Zuyun, he is sitting cross-legged in the middle of the room. He can clearly feel that the old man Feng in the picture is getting better and better. Just from the look on his face, he could tell that he was much better, and he was amazed in his heart. Finally, as old man Feng exhaled a breath of turbid air, he suddenly opened his eyes, showing a touch of joy and said, "Old man Feng, are you okay?" Old man Feng responded, "Okay, it's almost done. After spending so many spiritual stones, old man, I can finally come out." Zuyun stood up, stretched, and said, "Then come out." After that, he took out the broken sword that was divided into two halves and placed it on the table in the room. If old man Feng wants to recover from his injuries, the quickest way is to repair his natal magic weapon. Unexpectedly, old man Feng laughed and said, "Little brother, this broken sword is mainly used to hide the magic weapon. Now that you have taken away the magic weapon, I will no longer be able to use it." Zuyun raised his eyebrows and said, "The implication is that you want to change to a natal magic weapon." "That's natural," old man Feng said proudly. "If I, old man Feng, have refined spiritual swords for countless nascent soul stages in the Peepa realm, wouldn't I keep one for myself?" As he said that, he appeared in front of Zuyun in a flash. But there was still his portrait in the scroll, but when I looked at it again, it was no longer so real. Later stage of nascent soul. Although he didn't take another look at old man Feng, Zuyun still felt old man Feng's realm just from his momentum. It was so accurate that old man Feng couldn't help but be a little surprised. "Little brother, this is amazing. Can you see my state?" Old man Feng's tone was very proud, and he said, "By the way, you didn't come to Huayden Valley just to find me, right? Do you want to enter the secret realm of the Book of Heaven?" he asked with a smile, looking a little attentive. Zuyun asked, "Why, you can also see it? I'm sure, you know the secret of the magic weapon, and you came to my Huayden Valley to find me, old man Feng. You must have other things to do. Don't worry, you can stay here in this flower with peace of mind before the secret realm of the heavenly book opens. Tanguli, I'll cover you." Old man Feng was patting his chest to assure himself, but unexpectedly, there was a sudden sound of wind coming from outside the house. Then, there was the sound of someone falling to the ground. The visitor did not hide it at all, and unleashed all his peak aura in the later stage of nascent soul. Wherever his spiritual consciousness reached, it covered the entire Huayden Valley, and also discovered Zuyun and old man Feng. The next moment, he appeared in the house. Is it him? The person coming is none other than the Lord of Beiwa City. In his hand, he held the demon fox that had transformed into its original form. The demon fox seemed to be dying, and was unable to answer the questions asked by the Lord of Beiwa City. But Zuyun was extremely nervous. Just because he doesn't know the Lord of Beiwa City. A monk at the peak of the late nascent soul stage stood in front of him like this. "Lord of Beiwa City, why did you come to Huayden Valley?" At this time, old man Feng spoke tremblingly, and Zuyun's pupils suddenly shrank. What else could it be for? He must be here for Chiuzuan. But, what happened to the demon fox in his hand? Is it possible that I have to save myself from him? Old man Feng, the lord of Beiwa City turned around and said calmly, "Someone stole a demon fox from my Beiwa City and killed my Xianxia. Is it you who did this?" Old man Feng glanced at Zuyun, then quickly shook his head and denied it. "How is it possible? I am just a sword refiner in the middle stage of nascent soul. I can't do such things as fighting and killing. Are you somewhere, made a mistake? If you didn't do it, could it be that it was him?" The lord of Beiwa City glanced at Zuyun lightly, then threw the demon fox aside, and suddenly shouted sharply, "Old man Feng, aren't you obsessed with Xiu? You are talking like crazy. How come you can speak clearly now?" Hearing this, old man Feng's expression changed drastically, and without saying a word, he just headed towards the scroll. Sure enough, Zuyun felt an extremely majestic spiritual power, with the power to destroy the heaven and the earth. Boom! At such a close distance, he couldn't see anything clearly, and he was thrown out of the house. After finally standing firm, I realized that the lord of Beiwa City had already made a move, but that palm landed on the scroll. It turns out that old man Feng hid in the scroll again. The house has been destroyed, but the painting remains intact. Lord Beiwa City, if you have something to say, please tell me. Please listen to my explanation. Old man Feng said loudly. Explanation? Is there any explanation? I knew you had evil intentions back then. If Gulai Uman hadn't protected you and said you were crazy, would you still be alive today? After saying that, he struck the scroll with another palm. But this picture scroll is an unknown magic weapon of unknown grade, but the lord of Beiwa City was so angry that he was unscathed. Huh! Old man Feng and the lord of Beiwa City were both stunned. But then, old man Feng made a face at the lord of Beiwa City. He, so this is all you can do? Come on, come and fight me. I almost forgot that my ancestral painting scroll is a magic weapon that cannot be broken by people below the nascent soul stage. Old man Feng, do you think I don't know your painting scroll? Humph, so what if it can't be broken? I have thousands of ways to deal with you, so you can just be a turtle in it for the rest of your life. As soon as the voice fell, the lord of Beiwa City reached forward through the air and took the painting scroll off the wall. When it fell into his hands, it had been rolled up, and the lord of Beiwa City threw it directly into his storage bag. Not far away, Zuyun was completely stunned when he saw this scene. Old man Feng also said that he was protecting himself. In the end, that's it. In less than 3 breaths, he hid in the painting scroll himself, and it was put away. Should I run, or run, or run? When Zuyun was thrown out of the house, he thought about running away. But not far from him was the demon fox. She was lying on the ground with her eyes closed. If she could not feel the weak demon power, Zuyun would have run away long ago. But he promised Qiuqi that he would save all the demon foxes he saw in Peeper Realm. If he broke his promise, his Taoism would certainly be affected. At this time, the lord of Beiwa City turned around calmly. Old Feng, since I can't kill you for the time being, I will take your son's life as interest. The lord of Beiwa City actually mistook Zuyun for Feng Qingyang, and his spiritual consciousness was rushing towards Zuyun. If he was locked, he only needed to turn it into pressure, and Zuyun would be dead for sure. He didn't have time to explain that he was not Feng Qingyang, and even if he could explain, the lord of Beiwa City had to believe it. Under this circumstance, Zuyun immediately used the thunder escape technique and flashed away. Huh? You're running pretty fast, worthy of being a single-line wind spiritual route passed down from ancestors. The lord of Beiwa City looked at Zuyun's figure with contempt as he appeared from the other side, but then he shook his head in surprise. No, it's also very fast, but it's completely different from the spiritual energy aura of old man Feng just now. Even Zuyun couldn't distinguish the wind's spiritual energy, so the lord of Beiwa City naturally couldn't. But he could make a comparison. The spiritual energy fluctuations driven by Zhu Yun's thunder escape technique were completely different from when Old Man Feng hid in the painting Sky Scroll. Interesting, but where can you run to when you are in the middle stage of Jindan? As soon as he finished speaking, his figure also disappeared from the original place, and the next moment he appeared beside Zhu Yun. Teleport. The Lord of Beiwa City thought he was unexpected, but he never thought that Zhu Yun was extremely experienced in dealing with the pursuit of the Yuanying period, and it was impossible for him to stay in one place for a breath of time. The Lord of Beiwa City grabbed it casually, but it missed. Interesting, you actually predicted my move. The Lord of Beiwa City looked at his empty hand and couldn't help laughing. Although he hadn't found Xiuzuan yet, the successive attacks just now had allowed him to vent a lot of his anger. It was dark again, and there were no outsiders in Huayden Valley. He thought he could play a good game of cat and mouse here. However, he soon found that if he just chased like this, he couldn't even touch the corner of Zhu Yun's clothes. The Lord of Beiwa City gradually lost his patience, and he flipped his hand and took out a kettle-shaped magic weapon. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 605. Zhu Yun was extremely anxious. Why didn't he want to escape from Huayden Valley? But there was only one exit, which was upward. If the Lord of Beiwa City noticed his intention to escape, he would teleport immediately, seal the mountain pass, and wait for him. Seeing him take out the magic weapon, Zhu Yun's heart was in his throat. However, he still maintained his rationality to some extent, and did not show too much panic, but continued to flash with the thunder escape technique. Now he could rely on the self-destruct array he had set up earlier. But the problem was that the Lord of Beiwa City stood in front of the destroyed house, and did not even move his feet. This was the main reason why Zhu Yun did not rush to the mountain pass. As the Lord of Beiwa City focused his eyes, a blue-green light flashed on his body. Water and wood dual spiritual roots. Zhu Yun was slightly startled, and then he saw the Lord of Beiwa City threw his magic weapon out. However, the magic weapon was not thrown at Zhu Yun, but towards the mountain pass. When the kettle left his hand, it quickly grew larger. Zhu Yun thought to himself that it was not good, as if he had guessed the purpose of the Lord of Beiwa City. The spout of the kettle was downward, and in the blink of an eye, it had filled the entire mountain pass tightly. This not only blocked Zhu Yun's last retreat, but also the countless small holes after the spout became larger, and water was sprayed out. Is he going to flood the entire Beiwa Valley? Zhu Yun's mind was spinning rapidly. At this time, Beiwa Valley was like being attacked by a rainstorm. Soon his feet were submerged in water. After a while, the water submerged his knees, then his thighs, and then his chest. Ha ha ha, I wonder how you can use that escape technique in the water. The Lord of Beiwa City laughed and looked at Zhu Yun with interest. There was only one word in his mind: catch the turtle in the jar. Huayden Valley is the jar, and Zhu Yun is the turtle. Yes, I still have the water escape technique. Anxiously, Zhu Yun was still thinking about how to escape from here, but the words of the Lord of Beiwa City inadvertently reminded him. This water is just water with a little spiritual power, no different from ordinary spiritual springs. However, if he uses the water escape technique at this time, I am afraid that the Lord of Beiwa City will discover his means and stop filling the water. While he is careless and relaxed, it is better to make the water here fuller, so that he will have a larger range of activities. Thinking of this, Zhu Yun pretended to be panicked and began to flutter in the water, just like an ordinary cultivator who can't swim. Boy, you can't swim, why don't you try to fly? The Lord of Beiwa City was amused, grinning, and deliberately reminded Zhu Yun. He thought that Zhu Yun was also afraid of water, so he forgot that he could fly out of the water. If Zhu Yun really flew, he wouldn't mind letting Zhu Yun taste his magical powers in water spiritual power and have a good time. But Zhu Yun knew that he could fly out of the water, but he pretended not to hear it. He would choke from time to time and cough violently, which made the Lord of Beiwa City even more careless, so he did not stop the water filling of the magic weapon. The water level rose higher and higher, and Zhu Yun's feet could no longer touch the ground. His body floated up and down, sometimes appearing and sometimes sinking into the water. The Lord of Beiwa City stood on the water, and as the water level rose, he also stood higher. But gradually, he found something wrong. Zhu Yun seemed to have not appeared above the water for a long time. Strange, drowned. He felt a little incredible. It is normal for cultivators to be unable to swim, but it is absolutely impossible to say that he was drowned in the water. The water released by his own life magic weapon has no killing power at all. Even if it is a chi refining stage, it is impossible to die. But what about the other person? He secretly felt strange and just watched. Little did he know that when Zhu Yun saw that the height of the water was about the same as what he had performed, he used the water escape technique in the water without hesitation and escaped to the place where the demon fox had been lying before. Compared with the unreliability of the thunder escape technique, the water escape technique was completely under Zhu Yun's control. And among the 5 escape techniques, only the water escape technique could be considered to be truly invisible. The nature of water allowed him to escape and quickly fill the gap and erase his traces after escaping. And Zhu Yun escaped to the demon fox as soon as possible. If you want to live, recognize me as your master. He got straight to the point without any nonsense. The demon fox was not good at water either. She was seriously injured. The reason why she came to Huayden Valley after a day was because she had been struggling for a long time and finally decided to take the Lord of Beiwa City away from here in the opposite direction. Indeed, she could feel Chiuzuan's breath coming here, and finally disappeared in Huayden Valley. But how could she take her tribe member who had finally escaped into the fire pit again? In this way, after running wildly for half a day with the Lord of Beiwa City, the Lord of Beiwa City finally found the clue. In a rage, the Lord of Beiwa City directly used the soul-searching method to find her memory from the fox demon's brain. But because of this, the fox demon's soul was severely damaged. But in this way, she was lucky, she did not die, nor did she lose her mind. She raised her head with difficulty and looked at Zhu Yun, her eyes were a little dull, and she was thinking carefully about what Zhu Yun meant. But Zhu Yun was anxious. In a hurry, he could only say, Chiuzuan is also there, and I saved you. If you recognize me as your master, I can send you there. Hearing this, the fox demon's dazed pupils suddenly exuded a touch of spirit. Then, when she nodded, she was immediately taken into the immortal mansion ranch by Zhu Yun. Zhu Yun just breathed a sigh of relief, and then he felt a huge spiritual consciousness sweeping down from above. He was shocked and held his breath immediately. The spiritual consciousness swept over him, but did not stop. I think the Lord of Beiwa City did not expect that Zhu Yun, who was completely incapable of water, could completely integrate himself into the water. But soon, there were huge waves on the water surface. Where is the demon fox? Where is the demon fox? Did that kid who can't swim just run away with the demon fox? The Lord of Beiwa City is not a moody person. But at this time, the spiritual consciousness swept across the entire water area, but did not see the figures of a man and a fox. How could he not be anxious? I was fooled. That kid pretended to be like that in order to paralyze me. What a deep scheming mansion, just like old man Feng, and said that he was not his son. The Lord of Beiwa City's eyes sprayed with angry flames. He didn't expect that. He thought he was a cat and Zhu Yun was a mouse. But the result at this time is that he is still the cat, but Zhu Yun is a mouse teasing the cat? Unforgivable sin. Huayden Valley, destroy it for me today. The Lord of Beiwa City only looked up, and the kettle stopped spraying water immediately. Then, he quickly pinched the magic formula in his hand, and a little green light emerged from his hand out of thin air, just like the thousands of stars in Zhu Yun's Duzwangxing II formation, and was sprinkled into the water by him. "Old Feng, let you see why I am the lord of Beiwa city." He whispered in his mouth, took out the Huatian scroll with one hand, and threw it towards the kettle at the mouth of the valley. The Huatian scroll immediately unfolded, revealing the portrait of Old Feng. Looking at the flooded Huatian valley, Old Feng couldn't bear to look directly. But he had no way. Because the scroll was unfolded, it was attached to the spout of the kettle like the ceiling. He looked down from a high place, and his lips kept shaking. Years of foundation, actually destroyed in his generation? But fortunately, Beiwa City doesn't seem to know the biggest secret of Huatian Valley, the Sky Fire Dragon. In the entire Peepa realm, except for himself, only that kid knows it. Wait, where is that kid? Old Man Feng was suddenly shocked and subconsciously searched the entire Huatian Valley. But how could he find Zuyun, who even the Lord of Beiwa City couldn't find? That kid ran away? Impossible, he is in the middle stage of Jindan, and even I, a wind spirit root, dare not run away. How could he run away? Impossible, impossible, that kid must be dead. Boy, you are so miserable. But it's better to die. If you die, no one will know about the Sky Fire Dragon. Alas, I'm not cursing you to death. Compared with my future, the ancestral precepts are more important. Don't blame me, don't blame me. Old Man Feng muttered. At this time, the water surface gradually became green. It turned out that the green light sprinkled by the Lord of Beiwa City was actually the spiritual seeds of some aquatic plants. These spirit seeds grew wildly under the nourishment of the spiritual power in the water and the promotion of the Lord of Beiwa City. The huge root system spread underwater. It's not that he didn't think about taking the water back. But before, without water, he couldn't catch Zuyun in a short time, and the sudden disappearance of the demon fox made him have no patience to spend more time. He had no doubt that Zuyun was hiding in the water with some mysterious method. Then when the roots of these spirit seeds touched Zuyun, he would know immediately. In this way, he would have nowhere to escape. At this time, Zuyun was also stunned to watch this scene, constantly using the water escape technique to dodge the spreading roots. He didn't recognize this magic, but he knew that it was not good to touch it. But when he was at a dead end, Zuyun gritted his teeth and lay down at the location where the self-destruct array was set up. If he really dares to come, I can only fight with my life. But gradually, Zuyun found that his idea was still too simple. The entire water was filled with black and gray roots. And the space above him was also compressed. If it was completely filled, he wouldn't even be able to use the water escape technique. Whatever magical power the Beiwa City Master had, I'm afraid he really couldn't deal with it. At the critical moment, a flash of green light suddenly flashed on the left side of Zuyun's lower abdomen. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 606. This is the wood spirit bead. Looking at the soft green light, Zuyun suddenly felt happy. The wood spirit bead is a treasure of the wood system, and this water was originally filled with pure water spiritual power, but now spiritual seeds have taken root and sprouted, the water is densely covered with roots, and everywhere is filled with wood spiritual power. With a thought in his heart, he immediately formed a mental connection with the wood spirit bead, and then used the wood spirit bead to absorb the wood spirit power here like driving the fire spirit bead. But Zuyun was using it for the first time, and he was afraid that too much movement would arouse the fear of the Lord of Beiwa City, so he was careful to control the absorbed wood spirit power so that the roots could not grow into him. Yes, it turns out that spirit beads have this kind of magical effect. Why haven't you discovered it before? Seeing that the growth rate of the root system was indeed restricted, Zuyun couldn't help but feel happy. Then, he raised his head and looked for a moment. Apart from his body, there was still a space left. He pondered slightly, the size was still a bit off. If the Lord of Beiwa City found out that he had teleported here, it would be difficult for him to turn over, not to mention that he would not be able to use the water escape technique at this time. It seems that it needs to be expanded even more. My advantage is to dodge and compete with strength, but I was easily crushed to death. Before the Lord of Beiwa City noticed, I slowly used the wood spirit bead to eat away his spiritual power. Zuyun immediately made a decision. These spiritual seeds would not grow so fast for no reason. Naturally, the Lord of Beiwa City gave birth to them with his spiritual power. I have to say that the spiritual power in the nascent soul stage is really pure. Even though the Lord of Beiwa City has dual spiritual roots, he can't feel any clutter from it. In other words, as your level of cultivation increases, your control over spiritual power will become stronger. In this way, no matter how many spiritual roots you have, it will not have much impact on your cultivation. Suddenly, Zuyun thought of this key point. The big dog has 2 spiritual roots, so he is not worried. But Ergu has 3 spiritual roots. In terms of talent in the Ya realm, it will be more difficult for monks with 3 spiritual roots to practice. But at this moment, he suddenly realized something and couldn't help but relax a lot. If the 2 dogs can catch up with the big dog's training speed, I can wait a while and then we will go to the spirit world together. Thinking of entering the spiritual world with his 2 friends in the future, Zuyun couldn't help but feel fascinated. Unexpectedly, at this moment, the Lord of Beiwa City finally discovered something unusual. It's strange. There is obviously still space in the water, so why doesn't the spiritual seed continue to grow and fill it up? He just frowned slightly, but he immediately understood, his expression darkened, and he snorted, "Good boy, you really have some skills, no wonder you dare to steal people from my Beiwa City." After saying that, his hands suddenly flew, and while various complicated movements continued to change, streaks of green light emerged from his fingers. The output of spiritual power immediately increased, and the spiritual seeds floating on the water were already in bud. And under the continued drive of the Lord of Beiwa City, all the petals bloomed at the same time. Hundreds of flowers are blooming, and the fragrance of flowers is overflowing, filling the entire Huaytan Valley. So beautiful, like a fairyland. There was a gasping sound coming from the heavenly painting scroll that was hung on the kettle ritual vessel. It's old man Feng. The Lord of Beiwa City has improved a lot in strength over the past 100 years. That boy, it's over. He couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. He was just a little worried about Zuyun's safety, but he said to himself, it's weird, that kid is dead, and he can hide the secret of the Skyfire Dragon, why am I still afraid of his death? The old man Feng in the scroll of the painting has his eyes flickering. At this time, the Lord of Beiwa City didn't pay attention to him at all, but he had a chance to take action. However, his realm is slightly weaker and he only has one chance to strike. Originally, this opportunity was used as the last trump card to escape from Huaytan Valley. But at this moment, he was struggling in his heart, should he blast away the natal spiritual weapon of Beiwa City Lord, or, blast it at Beiwa City Lord? Just when he was struggling, Zuyun suddenly felt the pressure in the water increase greatly. The light emitted by the wood spirit pearl also suddenly increased. Zuyun had used the wood spirit pearl to control these roots from growing towards him, but at this time, spiritual power was added to the wood spirit pearl, and the wood spirit pearl absorbed more, forming the force directly made Zuyun feel as if his waist and abdomen had been hit by a stone. The Lord of Beiwa City must have discovered it, otherwise how could he increase his power? It's just that he is still testing it now. Zuyun took a breath and secretly guessed what the Lord of Beiwa City was thinking. In the absence of strength, he can only use his brain. It seems that showing weakness is no longer an option, so the only option is to anger him, causing him to despise himself and lose his mind at the same time. As long as he gets down here, the self-destruction formation will have a chance to show off its power. Him. Zuyun gritted his teeth, and after making an immediate decision, he asked the wood spirit bead to speed up the absorption of wood spirit power, and the roots in the water began to slowly recede. But on the water surface, without the nourishment of the wood spirit power and being sucked away by the wood spirit beads, these flowers that had just bloomed slowly withered. What is going on? The Lord of Beiwa City narrowed his eyes. He was considered the number one figure in the Peepa realm, at the top, but he had never seen such a scene. This clearly means that someone broke his magic power. How did he do it? The Lord of Beiwa City watched intently as the petals folded up, as if they had been exposed to the scorching Sunday. After a while, he suddenly came to his senses, and then his spiritual consciousness spread, pouring directly into the water, and saw a scene that shocked him even more. In other places, the roots are densely covered. But there was only a small space that gradually grew larger under the effect of a green light. So this kid has a wood treasure, humph, it looks pretty good, but it's cheap to me. The green light was the wood spirit pearl. Under Zuyun's drive, the water escape technique could not cover up the light of the wood spirit pearl, which was particularly conspicuous under the blue water. But this kid threw the treasure here, but he disappeared. No matter what, take the treasure first. 100 lives of ants like that are not worth this treasure. The Lord of Beiwa City naturally didn't want to let go of the magic weapon that could restrain his magical powers. After locking the position, his figure instantly disappeared above the water. Teleport. In mid-air, seeing this scene, Old Man Feng was suddenly dumbfounded. He was originally struggling whether to hit someone or get out of trouble. Now, there is no need to choose at all. Immediately, he escaped from the scroll, and with a backhand palm, he slapped it hard on his head. This kettle magic weapon was not under the control of the Lord of Beiwa City at this time, and it no longer spewed spiritual water. As a result, it was slapped away by Old Man Feng. Above his head, there was the night sky again. Old Man Feng took a breath, stretched out his hand to take the scroll from the spout of the kettle, and no longer cared about anything else. He turned into a gust of wind and quickly disappeared into the night sky. In the small space under the water, the Lord of Beiwa City was stunned when he felt that his life magic weapon was attacked. Only then did he realize that he had ignored Old Man Feng in his anger. Humph, fortunately you didn't take this Lord's life magic weapon, otherwise you would be dead no matter how far you escaped to the ends of the earth. He had just teleported and wanted to grab the wooden spirit bead immediately, but he was slightly disturbed by Old Man Feng's actions. But when he looked at the green light again, he found that the green light was gone. This. He stared, what kind of magic weapon is this? How could it disappear under his eyes? After feeling it carefully, he found that the expansion of the space also stopped. So, did that kid put away the magic weapon? Good boy, if you leave this treasure, I don't know where you are. But if you put it away, it proves that you are in this space. Suddenly, he showed a grim smile and slowly stepped on the bottom of the valley. Zuyun had been prepared for a long time. When the Lord of Beiwa City appeared in this space, only a few feet away from him, he immediately put away the wood spirit pearl. His purpose was to distract the Lord of Beiwa City. Although he didn't know why the Lord of Beiwa City, who was in the nascent soul stage, would be distracted, it was obvious that this was exactly what he wanted. Not to mention, his foot had already stepped on the self-destruct array. Zuyun did not hesitate, and withdrew the water escape technique, and used the earth escape technique instead, escaping underground. Haha, earth escape technique? Boy, you have such a trick, and you dare to show off in front of the city lord. But in an instant, the Lord of Beiwa City had already discovered Zuyun's trace, but as soon as he finished speaking, spiritual power suddenly surged from the ground, and countless lights rose from under his feet. Self-destruction array, activated. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 607. Under the ground, all the spiritual stones gushed out all their spiritual power at the same time. And above the ground, in the water, the wood spiritual power and water spiritual power were also affected, and they were mixed with the spiritual power gushing out of the spiritual stones. Under this situation, these spiritual powers instantly became extremely terrifying and violent, and it only took a moment. The Lord of Beiwa City said one more word, and it was too late to escape at this time. He just wanted to use teleportation to escape from the water, but his figure was only halfway away, and all the spiritual power exploded. Boom! Looking down from above, after a loud bang, a huge water column was lifted up from the water surface and rushed straight to the mountain pass. Under the light released by the cliff, it was bright and shining. In the water column, there were countless spiritual seeds that bloomed and retracted. The flowers were brought to the mountain pass, and when they fell, all the petals scattered. Like a fairy scattering flowers. If the entire Huaytan Valley was not shaking, this would definitely be an indescribable beauty. Unfortunately, the power of the self-destruction array not only caused some boulders to roll down from the rings on all sides, but also suddenly, the ground collapsed, and it seemed that a deep pit appeared at the bottom of the valley, sucking all the water in. Swish! A figure emerged in the air. Half of his square face was miserable. Blood flowed out of his ears. It was the Lord of Beiwa City. He was a step slower just now, and was also affected by the huge force of the self-destruction array. Even if he was in the nascent soul stage, he could not escape safely at such a critical moment. If the self-destruction array was not under the water, blocking most of the spiritual power turbulence, I am afraid he would not be able to float safely in the air here. Boy, you deserve to die. The Lord of Beiwa City roared, stretched out his hand, and the life magic weapon that was hit out of the mountain by Old Man Feng flew back. When it fell into his hand, it had shrunk and was just held by him. On the ground, all the water receded, revealing an extremely huge deep pit. Before the self-destruction array was activated, he saw Zuyun use the earth escape technique and escape into the bottom of the valley. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately released his spiritual consciousness to search under the ground. As long as he moved in the soil, he would leave some clues. He was not worried that Zuyun could escape from the range of his spiritual consciousness. Outside Huaytan Valley is Pipa State. Outside Pipa State is People Lake. How could he, a Jindan boy, escape from the range of People Lake in just a few breaths? Just as his spiritual consciousness surged into the ground 10 feet and found a mark left by Zuyun's earth escape here, a wave of heat suddenly broke into his spiritual consciousness. Huh? Ground vein fire! He exclaimed lightly, not taking it to heart. The sword refining sect makes a living by refining swords, and everyone knows that there is ground vein fire. But just as he put away his thoughts, the temperature rose extremely high, and in an instant, his spiritual consciousness was burned. No, this ground fire is not right. The Lord of Beiwa City immediately withdrew his spiritual consciousness, but suddenly, it seemed as if a huge fire snake came out of a cave, and it rushed towards his spiritual consciousness frantically. In an instant, a flash of fire flashed before his eyes. It was coming out of the dark bottomless pit. Ang! Dragon roar! Echoing in the valley. The Lord of Beiwa City was stunned. How could this be ground fire? Is this a fire spirit beast? Before the sound fell, the fire quickly turned into a dragon shape. To be precise, it should be a dragon body. The red flames condensed and formed a dragon scale with bumps and bumps. Not only that, the dragon's eyes, dragon whiskers, and dragon horns were lifelike, as if a real dragon came from the abyss. Feeling the immense power, the lord of Beiwa city came back to his senses from his fear. He found that he seemed unable to easily defeat this dragon-shaped spirit beast. However, he, the lord of Beiwa city, had never been afraid of anyone. Let that kid run for a while. If he could subdue the spirit beast, it would be much more cost-effective than finding the demon fox. As for what would happen to Huayden Valley, he didn't care at all. Only such a spirit beast might give him an opportunity to break through. Whether it was the understanding of the Tao in the battle, or being able to obtain other. This was, the fate of the immortal. For a moment, a touch of joy flashed through the heart of the lord of Beiwa city, and he quickly put away his mind and responded seriously. At this time, the sky fire dragon successfully transformed, and then a majestic voice sounded. A mere ant in the nascent soul stage dares to be presumptuous in front of the sky fire? Was it you who made the noise here just now? The sky fire dragon spoke human words, which really scared the lord of Beiwa city. Of course, what shocked him even more was that he actually said that he was, sky fire. No, it wasn't me. The lord of Beiwa city was uneasy, but judging from his expression, he thought that it must be the explosion that caused the dissatisfaction of the sky fire, and he came to ask for punishment. Not to mention that it wasn't him. Even if it was him, the lord of Beiwa city would never admit it. You are the only one here, how dare you say it wasn't you? The sky fire dragon snorted coldly, and every word he said would bring out sparks. He raised his tone and said, "It doesn't matter whether it's you or not. I, the sky fire dragon, have been suppressed for countless years, and now I have finally escaped. Let's kill someone to celebrate." Hearing this, the lord of Beiwa city's face changed drastically, and he teleported upwards without hesitation. But the sky fire dragon had already started to kill, so how could he let the lord of Beiwa city escape? Immediately, he turned around and turned into a sea of fire, quickly covering the lord of Beiwa city. Boom! The valley shook, and the sky fire dragon, which used all its fire power, burned to the top of the cliff. All the flowers would wither if it touched it. Even those who were closer turned into charcoal in an instant. Some gravel and mud crumbs rolled down, fell on the coke, and were directly smashed into powder, which was then picked up by the fire wind and flew everywhere. If you get closer to the sea of fire, it will be quickly ignited by the high temperature, turn into sparks, and then disappear. The Huayden Valley, which was as bright as day, gradually turned into a dark red color. If there were any unknown monks flying above, they would definitely think that it was a volcano that was about to erupt. Skyfire, is it nothing more than that? At this time, the lord of Beiwa city suddenly shouted, with a hint of excitement. It turns out that the Skyfire dragon was not simply trapped here, but was suppressed here by Pipa State and Lake Bipa. For countless years, although the Skyfire dragon's intelligence was not wiped out, his strength was greatly reduced. Looking at the extremely powerful Sea of Fire, which has the power to destroy the heaven and earth, it cannot hurt the lord of Beiwa city who is trying his best to deal with it. Ha ha ha, I was scared to death. It turned out to be just a paper tiger. In that case, then come into my pot. A figure flashed, and the next moment, the lord of Beiwa city stood at the mountain pass. I saw him holding his natal magic weapon in his hand, muttering words in his mouth, and a water column rushed out of the spout, like a spiritual snake coming out of its hole, rushing towards the Skyfire dragon. He has the dual spiritual roots of water and wood, and his natal spiritual weapon is also a water-based spiritual weapon. Among them, there is some extremely pure water spiritual power. What he fights is the principle of water overcoming fire. Hold head high. Only then did the Skyfire dragon realize that his strength was not as good as before, and he roared unwillingly, and his voice came from the valley. Immediately, he transformed into a fire dragon again, with flames all over his body, and he rushed straight towards the water column. It's just ordinary water, how can it hurt this heavenly fire? Water can overcome fire, but if fire is strong enough, it can overcome water. As he spoke, the flames around the Skyfire dragon turned from red to dark, and when they were intertwined with the water column, they suddenly turned purple. Purple flame. This is extreme heat. Chichichi. The water column can't even get close to the Skyfire dragon, so how can it defeat him? Big, big, big. Upon seeing this, the Lord of Beiwa City immediately threw the kettle into the water, and as he drank loudly, the kettle once again became the size of a mountain pass, and the water column also became thicker. That's it? The Skyfire dragon looked away with disdain, and under his control, Xian brought up bursts of hot wind. The spiritual water was evaporated into water vapor that filled the mountain pass, not only cutting off Beiwa City Lord's spiritual consciousness, but also blocking his sight. He couldn't help but have a bad premonition in his heart. Retreat! 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 3 loud shouts came from the direction of the valley. It was the Skyfire dragon, who also used his magic power. Every word was like the Hungla bell ringing in his heart. And that huge kettle floating in the air would retreat several feet every time the Skyfire dragon shouted the word retreat. This Skyfire dragon can also use magical powers, it seems difficult to deal with. The Lord of Beiwa City focused his gaze, thinking that since he couldn't determine the location of the Skyfire dragon, even if the Skyfire dragon couldn't find him, he wouldn't be able to find him. Only his own spiritual weapon is spitting out water jets, so he wants to destroy my spiritual weapon first. Humph, this place is close to Lake Baiwa, and the water in the lake is inexhaustible, I wonder how you can cope with it? He raised his hand, and the water dragon rose from the people lake and rushed towards the end of the kettle. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 608. In the sky above Weitan Valley, the Lord of Beiwa City and the heavenly fire dragon were fighting evenly. The former is one of the hidden powers in the Peepa realm, and the latter is the Skyfire that has been suppressed here for countless years. Zuyun had no time to watch such a shocking fighting scene. Just because he frantically fled underground in order to escape the killing range of the self-destruction formation. Endless cracks, total darkness. I think all the fire here is from the fire dragon that day. He has escaped from the trap, and there is no more fire here. Zuyun's eyes shone, and he thought to himself, whether it is a natural formation or a man-made formation, there will definitely be formation eyes. The Skyfire dragon escapes from the trap, and what old man Feng said may affect the entire Peepa realm. So he wants to find the formation eye, see through the mystery of the Weitan Valley formation, and maybe even use it. At this time, even though he was very far away from the ground, he could still feel the vibrations coming from the sky. The power was so terrifying that he did not dare to go to the ground at all. Instead of just sitting here doing nothing, it's better to make some preparations first. Zuyun used the void-breaking spiritual eye technique, and everything he looked at was extremely clear. Soon, he discovered that there was a huge abyss under the ground, and even he couldn't see the bottom of it. With his mind moving, Zuyun used the earth escape technique to escape in that direction again, but he saw an eye-catching scene. I saw Feng Qingyang and Zhou Yingxia were disheveled, with disheveled hair, and were unconscious on the edge of the abyss. If anyone turns over, he will fall into it? No. No. Zuyun's face was full of disbelief, and his eyes immediately fell on Zhou Yingxia's hand not far away. That folding fan has been tempered again. Zhou Yingxia helped her refine the folding fan and then hooked up with Feng Qingyang? Zuyun secretly speculated and landed next to the two of them. After taking a closer look, he realized that they did not seem to have any substantial relationship. Although the clothes are messy, they have not completely receded. In the midst of passion, were you knocked unconscious? No, it won't be. This place is so far away from the ground that the self-destruction array cannot reach here, that is, the self-destruction array accidentally destroyed this natural formation, and then let the Skyfire Dragon escape from the trap, scaring them unconscious. Zhu Yun glanced at Feng Qingyang, full of suspicion. He knew very well that the lustful appearance shown by Feng Qingyang in Beiwa City was all fake. But the strange thing is it really difficult to control the situation? Otherwise, how could you have fun in a place like this? He touched his chin and sat cross-legged between the two of them, just in time to see a storage bag pressed under Xianxia's body. He couldn't help but his eyes lit up. The entrance beads must be inside, so Feng Qingyang wants to steal it. In this case, he wants to use a beauty trick. Zhu Yun looked at Xianxia. She was very beautiful. Among all the female cultivators he knew, she was the best. But when he turned to look at Feng Qingyang, the sloppy half of his hair made him feel a chill at the word beautiful man. Xianxia ran away from the fire dragon sect, which shows that she is extremely scheming and cannot possibly be fooled by Feng Qingyang. In this case, both of them are plotting against each other. Zhu Yun sighed slightly. They really do everything they can. Forget it, let them do whatever they want. Outside, whether the Skyfire Dragon or the Lord of Beiwa City wins, it is not a good thing for me. With this natural formation, it will take me a lot of time to find the center of the formation. It will take a lot of time to repair the formation. If the Lord of Beiwa City wins in the end, everything he has done will be in vain. The most urgent thing is to go to Old Man Feng first. That old boy, there is no way. Zhu Yun only felt two huge forces fighting. In addition to the boundless fire power, it was the water spirit power of Beiwa City Lord. As for why he didn't use the wood spirit power, it probably was because the wood spirit power was of no use at this time. The wood type is not suitable for main battles, and the Lord of Beiwa City naturally knows this. Zhu Yun thought about it for a long time, and after feeling that the movement had weakened a lot, he decided to go out quietly to take a look. If you have the chance, you must escape from the valley. If you stay here, if you encounter another crisis, you may have no way to escape. Thinking of this, he took a deep look at the two unconscious people, and then slowly used the earth escape technique to escape upward. He found a mountain path leading straight up, but Zhu Yun felt that his earth escape technique was more reliable. As he got closer and closer to the ground, Zhu Yun found that the movement coming from him was getting smaller and smaller. While he was pleasantly surprised, he also became more confused. Is one person's fire fighting farther and farther away, or is someone gradually gaining the upper hand? The fact that he fought far away meant that he had a chance to escape from the valley. But if one party has the upper hand, it will be very bad for him. No, you have to go up quickly to check the situation, otherwise all your ideas will be useless. Zhu Yun's heart changed, and he quickly escaped to the ground regardless of whether the fight between the two sides would affect him. Standing behind the solid land in the valley, Zhu Yun is in darkness. The flowers on the cliff were completely destroyed and could no longer release their light. The sky was filled with stars, and the faint starlight only kept him from being blind. When he got to the ground, he no longer used the void-breaking eyes technique in case Old Man Feng suddenly appeared next to him. As for spiritual consciousness, he didn't even dare to use it. I'm afraid that the slightest movement will attract someone's attention. He carefully took off into the air, and after flying to the mountain pass, under the endless night sky, on the water surface of Lake Baiwa in the far distance, a ball of flame dyed the sky like a cloud. There. His eyes tightened, and he was hesitating whether to get closer. When he was observing more carefully, a breeze suddenly blew by his side. Little brother, it's great that you're okay. Old Man Feng's voice rang in Zhu Yun's ears. Old Man Feng, did you run away? Zhu Yun turned his head, surprised and happy. He knew that Old Man Feng was hung on the kettle when he entered the water. I thought I would be taken away by the Lord of Beiwa City to draw the heavenly scroll, but I didn't expect that not only did he run away, but he also didn't do anything. Hey, what do you mean by running away? That's called strategic retreat. How ugly is the word running? Old Man Feng was so proud that he took out the painting scroll from his arms and waved it, then stuffed it back and said, "Little brother, how did you run out? I thought you were blown into a ball of flesh. You are a loser like me. Flowers and charcoal ash in the valley are among you, and you are among me." He was fine on the surface, but he had mixed feelings in his heart. Even the conflicting mood is even worse than that of Zuyun. "Old Man Feng, what do you think we should do now that the Skyfire Dragon has escaped? Is there any good way?" Zuyun turned his head and looked at the red light on the other side of People Lake, which flickered. Old Man Feng curled his lips and said helplessly, "What can I do? I am only in the late nascent soul stage, and now I have only recovered 30% of my strength. In the past, I was destined to die." Seeing Zuyun frowning, he felt nervous for no reason, and then said, "But they consume a lot. The Skyfire Dragon originally used the purple dragon fire to burn Old Man Hua, but he didn't expect that Old Man Hua was not bad at it. I thought about using Lake Baiwa water to deal with it." Old Man Hua. Zuyun was speechless about the flower name that Old Man Feng gave to the Lord of Baiwa City. By the way, the water of Lake Baipa can restrain the fire of the Skyfire Dragon. Although he didn't know what purple dragon fire was, Zuyun could tell that it should be one of the magical powers of Skyfire Dragon. And, they are both consuming each other. Otherwise, how could Old Man Feng, who had said he was protecting him one breath ago, hide in the heavenly painting scroll so simply in the next breath? It would be better if the water was available during the day, but it's a pity that Old Man Hua can't get water during the day. Old Man Feng said with a little regret. But Zuyun's eyes lit up and he said, "Old Man Feng, what do you mean by this? If you can control the daytime water of Lake Pipa, can you completely suppress the Skyfire Dragon? Isn't this nonsense? The water of Lake Baipa was originally designed to trap the Skyfire Dragon. However, it is only useful during the day. But it just exploded for some unknown reason, destroying Huaden Valley and waking up the Skyfire Dragon. This made him panic. You are still so energetic in the middle of the night. Hey, little brother, are you trying to steal the treasure in the lake at this time?" Old Man Feng suddenly came back to his senses and looked at Zuyun in disbelief. "Heh," Zuyun grinned and said, "Old Man Feng, how can the monks taking the treasure be called stealing? Good guy." Old Man Feng cursed out loud, "Where do you get these fallacies from? It doesn't come from anywhere, Feng Qingyang told me." Zuyun grinned and said, "But what he said is that things between men and women are not called stealing, but then again, he is quite filial." Old Man Feng looked puzzled and said suspiciously, "Little brother, what do you want to say? When I was still a mortal, I read in a book that there are 3 types of unfilial piety, the worst of which is not having an offspring. Your precious son just created a human being in the abyss underground. He probably wants you to be his grandfather. What? That boy, is looking for death." Old Man Feng's face changed drastically, and he immediately turned into a gust of wind, flowing straight down the valley and rushing straight into the deep pit blown up by the self-destruction formation. Zuyun, with a solemn face, was placed on the ripples of People Lake. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 609. If the old fisherman said there was a treasure under the water before, and you still couldn't believe it, then what Old Man Feng said is much more credible. Moreover, there are weird things in the water. If there is no treasure, I won't believe it even if I kill you. Zuyun's eyes were focused, and he already had a decision in his heart. It is said that when something goes wrong, there must be a monster, so how can this lake be so weird without treasure? As for what kind of treasure it is, Zuyun doesn't care. As long as we can get it and get rid of the Skyfire Dragon, then that's business. Otherwise, once the Feng family's ancestral precepts hit the mark, the Peeper realm may turn into a hell realm. Zuyun took a deep breath, threw all the fear of the lake out of his mind during the day, and then flew to the lake. As expected, not only can you fly on the lake at night, but the water's spiritual power is so rich and pure, it's not much different from the lake in my pasture. Zuyun sighed, you must know that the lake water in the pasture is all transformed by the power of chaos, and it is the purest water spiritual power. And here, there is such a concentration, which is enough to show how extraordinary this lake is. Moreover, it is not easy to imagine that the Lord of Beiwa City can use the magical power of this lake to suppress the Skyfire Dragon. Water Escape Technique. Zuyun recited the magic formula silently in his heart, and his body had already rushed into the water. At this moment, Zuyun completely merged with the water. Carefully feel yourself surrounded by endless water spiritual power, and an endless feeling of comfort arises from the bottom of your heart. But he also understood that this was not the time to enjoy. Baipa Lake is so big, so there is no need to delay. Once the heavenly fire dragon is dealt with, it will cost the Lord of Beiwa City a lot of money. It won't be a big worry. Zuyun in the nascent soul stage has killed many people, no matter how strong he is still a human being. If you are human, you will have weaknesses. As for the Skyfire Dragon, it's not like Zuyun never thought of using the fire spirit pearl to suck him into it. But he has too little experience in this area. Even if he is sucked into it, will the Skyfire Dragon cause a scene in the fire spirit orb and affect him? After all, the fire spirit pearl and his heart are already connected as one. He has not yet reached the nascent soul stage, does not have the ability to leave the body of the nascent soul, and does not have the method of leaving the body with the golden elixir. Once his heart is destroyed, he will definitely die. Zuyun didn't dare to try. As for letting Fen Tianyan suppress the Skyfire Dragon, Zuyun didn't even dare to think about it. He knew very well that Fen Tianyan's strength was only about the same as the pill formation stage. It's just that he is a heavenly fire from the fairy world, so he can hurt the nascent soul stage. And burning the nascent soul is the natural restraint effect of heavenly fire on the spirit body. Therefore, he had no hope of using Fen Tianyan to destroy the Skyfire Dragon. He even thought about the possibility that Fen Tianyan would be devoured by the Skyfire Dragon and strengthen him. Zuyun always thinks the worst about everything. It's not that he is timid, it's just that the Skyfire Dragon is too powerful. It was beyond his comprehension. If there is a treasure, it will definitely be at the bottom of the lake. And after reaching the bottom of the lake, I will use the void-breaking spirit eye technique to find it. This will get twice the result with half the effort. Zuyun sank all the way and escaped crazily towards the bottom of the water. But Lake Baiwa is like a deep sea. A full half an hour passed and he had not yet reached the bottom of the lake. This made him feel that it was much deeper than the wild sea he had dived in at that time. All around, not only was it pitch black and out of reach of light, but waves of coldness invaded the whole body. If it weren't for the fact that his water escape technique was so mysterious and completely integrated with the lake water, I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to bear it. No, I can't use the shattering void spiritual eyes technique after using the water escape technique. I originally thought of removing the water escape technique after going underwater, but now it seems that this method is completely impossible. When Zuyun smiled bitterly, he suddenly saw a flickering light not far below. His heart trembled, is that a treasure? Thinking of this, he couldn't care less about anything else and immediately ran towards the light spot. With the faint light, I realized that I had reached the bottom of the lake. There was a solid touch under his feet, which finally made Zuyun feel a little more at ease. But when he got close to the light spot, he saw the light spot suddenly swaying and quickly escaping into the distance. Hey, this baby can still run. Zuyun felt so miraculous, How could you let the treasure you finally found escape? However, he didn't panic. Under such dark water, the light has nowhere to hide. What's more, my own water escape technique can come and go freely under the water. Watch where you're going. Zuyun felt a little proud, and immediately ran to the edge of the light, stretched out his hand and grabbed it. Unexpectedly, the light spot quickly changed direction and swayed to the other side. At the same time, an undercurrent suddenly surged through the water, and some mud under the water was brought up, which immediately affected Zuyun's sight. "Good guy!" Zuyun exclaimed, and before the sludge was completely spread, he quickly moved forward a few steps away, and the light spot clearly fell into his eyes again. "Hey, look where you're going. Baby, come to me quickly." Zuyun felt that everything was under control, and his old god was there, and he slowly reached out towards the light spot. The light spot no longer flickered, and it seemed that he felt safe, and he didn't expect Zuyun to come behind him. Just when he was about to hold the light spot in his hand, the light spot once again felt the crisis, and an undercurrent appeared in the water again, bringing up the silt. Zuyun failed again. Strange, strange, how could it still be discovered? This time, the mud that was stirred up could not completely block the light. Zuyun was not in a hurry to chase it, but thought about what the problem was. Just now, he was obviously moving slowly, trying his best to suppress the water flow caused by the movement of his hands. "I originally planned to get to a certain distance and then take action quickly, but I didn't expect the light spot's reaction to be so quick. I'm so angry. There's too much spiritual power in this water. I can't use my spiritual sense at all. Otherwise, I have to see what kind of treasure this light spot is." Zuyun couldn't think of a reason at all, and couldn't help but curse several times in his heart. But at the end of the scolding came back to me. "If you have the chance, you must learn the magical powers in the water. Otherwise, what will you do if you go into the sea to hunt for treasures in the future?" Zuyun gritted his teeth. Why didn't he have this awareness when he was in the wild sea? Especially when I was hiding to watch the giant turtle bite Tang Zhuyang, I had no choice but to hide behind Zhao Kamang and watch the show. "Wait, Zhao Kamang." Suddenly, Zuyun's eyes lit up. Zhao Kamang is a real aquatic monster. It is true that he practiced the 10,000 demons art and finally turned into a monster. But a monster transformed from a human is not a monster? Hurry, call him. Zuyun's mind moved, and a dragon-toothed beast suddenly appeared in front of him. "It is Zhao Kamang. Old Zhao, grab that spot of light." In desperation, Zuyun spoke directly, and a lot of bubbles popped up. He was so frightened that the light spot not far away stirred up another wave of mud. Zhao Kamang was summoned into the water by Zuyun for the first time. Before he could recover, he was assigned a task. He followed the direction of Zuyun's finger and looked towards the light spot. Ho ho ho! Zhao Kamang could speak in the water without being affected. He roared, full of doubts. "What, don't you understand?" Zuyun burst out a bunch of bubbles again. Ho ho ho! Zhao Kamang roared twice, but suddenly realized that there was no way to explain this, and it was all in the dark. Even if he could write under the water, the mud would not be able to fully reveal the words. The water flow caused by writing the second word will definitely wash away the first word. Forget it, I'll catch it and show it to you. Zhao Kamang no longer spoke, but suddenly turned around, his hind legs suddenly moved out, and he rushed over like a water arrow. In front of Zuyun, a piece of grey mud rose up. At the same time, Zhao Kamang blocked him, causing Zuyun to fall into darkness again, and he could not see the light spot at all. Until Zhao Kamang's huge black shadow stopped, and he saw the light spot again. But the strange thing is that the light spot is not in Zhao Kamang's mouth, but is shaking violently around his mouth. Zuyun was puzzled and saw Zhao Kamang rushing not far in front of him. But at this moment, Zuyun noticed that there was a sudden light beside him. He turned his head subconsciously and found a dense patch of identical light spots. These light spots swayed in disorder and had no rules at all. This time, Zuyun was dumbfounded. Are there so many treasures? Just when he looked stunned, Zhao Kamang had already returned to him, his huge head lowered, and spit out a black shadow in front of him. Zuyun looked blankly and saw that the weak spot of light suddenly lost its light. Baby, gone. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 610. There were countless light spots on one side, and on the other side, the light spot that I had been chasing for a long time but could not get was gone. For a moment, Zuyun was a little confused. Ho ho ho. On the other side, Zhao Kamang roared and rushed towards the light spot over there. The dragon-tooth beast is considered one of the ferocious beasts in the wild sea, let alone in this Baipa lake. Moreover, the monster's instinct allowed him to feel that these light spots did not pose any threat to him at all. But the more this happened, the more Zuyun was confused and could only watch helplessly as these light spots dispersed in a rush, as if he was very afraid of Zhao Kamang. Just as his eyes followed Zhao Kamang, an unknown object slowly hit his foot. Baby is still there. Zuyun's eyes lit up and he quickly knelt down and touched it. Who would have thought that his hand would be pricked by a row of spikes? If he hadn't been in pretty good shape, he might have had a few bloody holes. In this situation where he couldn't see his fingers, couldn't use his spiritual sense, and didn't dare to use the void-breaking spirit eye technique, Zuyun was like a blind man touching an elephant, but when he reached out again, his movements slowed down a lot. On the other side, Zhao Kamang was still chasing the light spot, and his hand was stuck in the mud, fishing towards the bottom of the unknown object. Not long after, there was a delicate and slippery feeling in his hands, which was completely different from the previous row of spikes. This baby has a really strange shape. Zuyun murmured in his heart, but the appearance of a hedgehog, a mortal beast, appeared in his mind. But when he carefully caught the thing in front of his eyes, the almost invisible light allowed him to see the outline of a fish. No, this is a fish? Impossible, how can a fish glow? Zuyun stared hard, trying to see more clearly. No matter what, he couldn't imagine that the thing in his hand was a fish. Did he spend a long time and finally catch a fish? He couldn't help but look in the direction of Zhao Kamang, but who would have thought that the group of light spots over there was being chased farther and farther away, and even Zhao Kamang was left with only a dark mass. Shadow. This was still under the light of the light point group, otherwise he would not be able to see where Zhao Kamang went. This people lake is too weird, you must follow Zhao Kamang. In an instant, Zuyun made a decision in his heart, and regardless of what he was holding, he threw him into the ring and quickly escaped in the direction of the light spot. Unexpectedly, these light spots moved extremely fast. After forming a group, Zhao Kamang seemed to have no idea what to say. Whenever he got close to the light spot, the other light spots would always attack in groups, especially united. It's not really a fish, is it? Zuyun was speechless for a while. If this was really the case, wasn't he just fooled by a fish? Although the fish died, I wasted a lot of time. No matter what, let's follow up and take a look first. Anyway, we have to search at the bottom of the lake. Zuyun was helpless. It was difficult for him to even speak in the water, let alone shout loudly to make Zhao Kamang stop. And obviously, does Zhao Kamang think that he is letting him catch these fish? In fact, Zuyun's guess was indeed correct. Sangha brought back several baskets of fish before, and this time he asked Zhao Kamang to catch fish at the bottom of the water. Zhao Kamang really tried his best to chase these fish. Previously, he accidentally bit the fish to death, and he realized in his heart that the master wanted to raise fish. Why did he kill it? In this way, he would not kill him painfully. In addition, these light fish are extremely united, which resulted in such a scene. Zuyun followed closely behind. The water was dark and quiet. But above Lake Baipa, the battle between the Skyfire Dragon and the Lord of Beiwa City has reached an extremely anxious state. One person and one fire consume a huge amount of energy. The Lord of Beiwa City had a single method. He only used his natal spiritual weapon to crazily absorb water from the People Lake to suppress the Skyfire Dragon, which consumed a lot of money. But the Skyfire Dragon was not having a hard time either. His flames had been suppressed. Although there was no danger of his life, as the fire power in his body dissipated, he couldn't help but become more and more anxious. But the Lord of Beiwa City is so cunning and cunning, how can such a person fight against the Skyfire Dragon in person? Because of this, they kept swimming back and forth on Lake Baiwa. Whenever the Skyfire Dragon wants to escape from the area of Lake Baipa, the Lord of Beiwa City will immediately increase the output of spiritual power, allowing more lake water to block the direction in which the Skyfire Dragon wants to leave. All in all, in this situation, there is nothing anyone can do. The Lord of Beiwa City didn't want to leave, he regarded Lake Baipa as his home court. The Skyfire Dragon couldn't move away even if it wanted to. Until, Zuyun suddenly realized that he seemed to be diving deeper under the lake bottom. The water was so dark that he couldn't tell the direction at all. It felt like he was trapped in the star-shifting formation for the first time by Tang Liwen. Front, back, left, right, up and down, 6 directions, just like being in the void world. But fortunately, Zuyun has had such an experience, so he is not panicked, but he can't help but think of those light spots escaping like this. Could there be a place where they can take refuge? For example, where is the magic weapon? Thinking of this, Zuyun's eyes lit up again, and he felt a little excited in his heart. Assuming these are really fish, then it is the natural instinct of this kind of spiritual beast to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. With Zhao Kamang being so ferocious, they would naturally do anything to save their lives. But due to their strength, even a whole group of them cannot defeat enemies like Zhao Kamang. The only way left is to escape. Zuyun couldn't help but start to wonder what kind of treasures were in this lake that made People Lake so mysterious. After chasing another stick of incense, a ball of blue light suddenly appeared in the endless darkness. This mass is as big as Zuyun's fist, far beyond the comparison of these light spots. Zuyun was so excited that he wanted to take a deep breath uncontrollably, but he forgot that he was in the water, and he was choked when he took a breath. Ahem! He coughed violently, and a large series of bubbles appeared in the water. Under the blue light, the bubbles glowed in various colors. It seemed like fireworks were set off underwater. Zhao Kamang, as an aquatic monster, is extremely sensitive to the environment in the water. He also saw this blue light and was stunned in place. He happened to hear Zuyun coughing and thought something had happened to him, so he turned around immediately swim up to Zuyun. Zuyun put his hand on Zhao Kamang's back, then he took a breath and pointed in the direction of the blue light with his other hand. Go over and have a look, it might be a treasure. The blue light formed a circle as a whole, which made Zuyun couldn't help but fantasize again, could this be a ball treasure? After hearing Zuyun's instructions, Zhao Kamang looked solemnly, turned to look at Zuyun, and then shook his head, indicating that he should be careful. Zuyun spit out a few bubbles and asked, "Is it dangerous?" Roar. Zhao Kamang only roared once this time, and then pursed his lips towards the blue light. What he means is that there is no way to determine safety or danger. But Zuyun didn't understand the meaning, and couldn't help frowning and looking at the group of light spots behind the blue light. The light spot no longer swayed, but stopped, hanging motionless, as if it was ready to attack at any time. How about you expel those light spots first, and then I can go and see what the blue light is. Zuyun spit out several strings of bubbles before finishing the sentence. Roar. This time, Zhao Kamang no longer hesitated and rushed out like an arrow from the string. Just when he was about to rush through the blue light, He immediately turned a corner and rushed into the light spot. Those light spots fled again. Maybe they didn't expect that under the protection of this treasure, Zhao Kamang would dare to pursue him. At this time, Zhu Yun also moved. However, he did not choose the water escape technique this time. He slowly swam over, his vigilance raised to the extreme. The more mysterious the treasure, the more careful you must be. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps, 9 steps, 10 steps. Zhu Yun was only 10 steps away from the blue light. A light that was not too bright shone into Zhu Yun's pupils. There is a particularly moist feeling in my eyes. At the same time, his heart began to beat wildly. In the lower abdomen, the wood spirit beads on the liver were trembling slightly. As for Zhu Yun, his face was full of ecstasy. This is water spirit bead.